just something small, spark some discussion. Hopefully, I did another like 4.5 hours of testing on the beta, which equates to me finishing 2 dungeons total. Really fun. But we did learn a lot. I mean, I feel like every time I log on there, I do learn a lot. And yeah, I mean, this was not much to go on here. We have a couple things to talk about in the dungeon department, and this was mostly what people were telling me. But yeah, I think most people are probably here for the Blood Death Knight discussion, so let's start with that. If you guys haven't seen, I made like a million videos on this now. Basically, tons of tank changes. Like if somehow you're just seeing this and you're hearing all this for the first time, you have a lot to catch up on. Massive overhaul to Mythic Plus affixes, total rework of the system, basically. Um, because of the way that's going to work, apparently they need to change the way tanks work. So they're massively nerfing the ability for all tanks to be self-sustainable. Obviously, they're going to fail to do that with Blood DK. TLDR in the last conversations, Blood DK are still very capable of soloing. I proved that many times today. Many people, like it would just be me fighting packs for minutes on hand while people run back. No real issue with that. Obviously, you have to play better now. People ask me all the time about like how it feels. Makes no difference whatsoever to how Blood DK feels, in my opinion. They're just weaker, just far weaker, really. The Blood Shield nerf is the bigger of all the nerfs they did. You now just heal for way less because you don't have that pad on Blood Shield constantly reducing the damage you take. It was basically like extra damage reduction. I have stuck with instead of Fallen Crusader, I've been using Stone Skin Gargoyle. Is that fringe? I don't know. It seems to help, especially now with the much higher health pool. I had like an enormous amount of health, over I think like 12 million health with full Foul Bulwark and Vamp Blood up. But still, I got hit at one point for 14 million from the Tank Breaker on the first boss in Stone Vault. Now I think that's an exception because apparently there's a mechanic that needs to be dispelled, and then you take way less damage from that mechanic. But I can survive a 14 million damage hit, a 14 million physical damage hit. It's possible to survive that as a Blood DK. So yeah. Anyway, here's the actual stuff that happened this week. Seemingly they buffed all tanks. We had this conversation on stream. It doesn't seem like Guardian got the same type of treatment. I don't really understand what they did here. I mean, they buffed like all ability damage, but then they nerfed Moonfire. So I don't really know how that works out. But I guess Moonfire was like top damage overall, so they had to nerf it. But every other tank got some kind of buff. I guess some got 15, Blood got 10. All damage increased by 10%. And so you see this, and I think just because of the ways people's brains work nowadays with Blood DK and tanks in general, they're like, that's a buff. Okay, sure. I mean, yeah, it's literally a buff, but is that going to ever make a difference? I don't know why they did this. The only thing I can think of is it's about the threat situation. This is not going to help with that, frankly. But yeah, I think with the differences between beta and live characters, I do have better threat establishment on the beta due to the hero talents. So if you're one of the people always come into stream saying I'm struggling with threat on Blood DK, me personally, I'm not taking something like Slappy Hands, which should substantially improve my ability to keep threat. You can pretty much just save that for any difficult to get threat pack because it will also help grip mobs in, right? It's a pure offensive spell now, so there's no reason to just use it unless you're just using it for offense on cooldown. So anyway, there's lots of solutions is my point. 10% damage buff, not really going to make any difference on that at all. But, there was a lot of times when I was actually ahead of DPS. Blood DK does like crazy good damage now. I don't know if all tanks do. It's probably all tanks. But yeah, like there was a lot of packs. Now, there's some weird stuff going on in the beta yet again because people are just, like we were saying today, like it's probably not possible to tell. But there's people on there who are probably doing keys for the first time. And you can surmise who they are. Like we had one guy today in Grimitol, he fell off the edge of the like walkable area right when we were taking the dragon, and then just didn't take the dragon. And for like 15 minutes, I'm like, how are these mobs all still alive? We didn't kill a single pack, right? Well, one of the guys didn't use his dragon, okay? So we wiped, and I come back, and there's still a dragon there. And I got on the guy's case. I'm like, why the hell would you not use this? And he goes, I fell. And it made me think like, okay, hold on a second. He probably didn't know he had to take it in the first place. This is probably the first time this guy's ever seen this dungeon. So it's impossible to really do much testing in this environment. But yeah, 10% damage buff is not, what is that going to change? That's extremely minor and has no impact on why they're strong or weak right now. And again, every tank got something like this. Now this is the big change, and I had some opinions that I'm glad I didn't make the video when it first came out. Bone Storm now consumes up to 5 Bone Shield charges, was 10, and it now lasts 2 seconds per charge. So Bone Storm, sorry, I always say these words wrong. It will last still the full 10 seconds. Okay, it used to last 1 second per charge. Now it's 2 seconds per charge, but you can only spend 5 charges. So 2 or 3 builds ago, or whatever, 2 or 3 weeks ago, they made it so before Bone Storm's consumption of Bone Shield did not interact with the reduction of Dancing Rune Weapon. It does now. On the pre-patch, it does now. It takes 50 seconds off with 10 stacks consumed because it's 5 seconds per. This leads to a situation where you will use Dancing Rune Weapon. I'm not exactly sure if the order of these things matter, but you will then use 10 Bone Shield on Bone Storm, refresh to 5 Bone Shield, then use on Tombstone for another 25 seconds, and then I guess just nothing else. Like that's it, the end of the loop, and you will have back-to-back Dancing Rune Weapons. It'll be a couple seconds, just because it takes a couple globals to press these things. So it'll be like a couple seconds. Dancing Rune Weapon will end, and then a couple seconds later you'll have Dancing Rune Weapon again. This is ridiculously good. What obviously is, it sounds good on paper, but what might not be obvious is the fact that you will always have that situation occur when Dancing Rune Weapon, Bone Storm, and Tombstone are all off cooldown at the same time. When does that happen? The beginning of every dungeon. When do you pull the biggest? The beginning of every dungeon. Every CD's up, Bloodlust is up, potions are up, guaranteed. The only time in the entire dungeon all of these things are true. Really, 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 really nice. Not going to be the case anymore. It's still pretty damn close, to be honest. It's obviously, 25 seconds less true, but it's still pretty damn close. So I saw some conversation on this a couple days ago, and people said, I think it was said it was it's not a big uptime loss, okay? And it didn't make any sense to me whatsoever because 25 seconds is huge. But then I started thinking about it, practically, like not necessarily theoretically, which me, I don't know why I didn't think in these terms. First of all, I hate looking at like Sims because it's just pointless. You're never going to live in a world where you do everything perfect for the whole combat rotation. And so I don't know why I didn't think about this sooner, but yeah, it's obvious that the amount of times you are sitting on Bone Storm or even maybe using it by accident because you're not sure if you should sit on it, like it's hard to use in the pre-patch version right now where it takes 50 seconds off. Because 50 seconds off a 2-minute CD that already reduces itself with another spell and then by itself is like, yeah, so you use it, you get that free back-to-back, and then you're going to wait a whole, you know what I mean? Like, then you're waiting the full time for Bone Storm to come back up. And in that time, Rune Weapon is totally desynced, where it often comes up where Bone Storm is coming up with like less than 20 seconds left on Dancing Rune Weapon. And if you're like CD minded like me, it's hard to not use that. It's hard to not use it on cooldown, first of all, and it's hard to not use it with less than 10. Like I do it all the time, like 8 or 9 constantly. Now, luckily they made it so we can have up to 12. That makes it a lot easier. But if it was 10 and that was it, this would be so hard to use with 10 because you have to basically press Mirror End or whatever you're getting to 10 with and then instantly do it before you lose a charge, right? This happens to me all the time. And honestly, it's kind of fun. Like looking at it, it's a lot harder than it should be. And I don't know how good the actual spell usage is. So it makes me concerned that just using the spell is pointless and maximizing it is the only thing that matters, especially from a defensive point of view, because the spell itself does almost no healing. So now this is a nerf, theoretically. People are stating that it's not that big of a theoretical nerf. But in practical terms, like in reality, it's not really, it's like actually it depends on how you look at it. Are you somebody who like tries to min-max every single global you press in a dungeon and you think you're a god and the only thing that matters is your offensive output? Well, then it's a nerf. But if you're somebody like me who blunders and makes lots of mistakes and is constantly struggling to keep track of everything Blood DK has to track, I think it's a buff. It sounds silly to say, but it's such a quality of life buff that I would actually look at this as the better version, the better iteration. Yes, now, especially on the beta, because of the changes they made a couple builds ago, Dancing Rune Weapon's uptime is weak. I think we had think it was like a 29% uptime. We did Mr. Turnstile. That was like the only dungeon we finished all day. I think I joked before saying two. I finished one dungeon. It was Mr. Turnstile. That's on the channel there if you want to look at it. That's the only dungeon I finished. The spreads, the damage, everything was the exact same. 86% damage taken. I healed just like the last build. Literally no change. Bloody K had no. This does not impact them, is what I'm trying to tell you right now. And if anything, it's a nice positive thing, because now it allows you to pretty much just use Bone Storm on CD without too much concern. The likelihood that you don't have 5 Bone Shield and the likelihood that you need more than 26 seconds of reduction from using the spell is quite low because of, like I said before, the way it times out. And now, especially since, the nerfs that they already did, it's very likely that every time Bone Storm is up, you need 25 seconds of reduction and you have 5 Bone Shield. So this is just making the spec way easier to play, even though theoretically it is a nerf. And to me, that's fine. Like, it's whatever. I was pretty upset about this because, frankly, it just seems like Bloody K is getting nerfed week after week. And, I don't think they're that strong, frankly. They're not overpowered. But we'll see how it plays out. So yeah, in terms of the way Blood DK played and these buffs and nerfs, quote unquote, like, they don't matter. They actually made no impact on my abilities. The abilities themselves didn't really change. Dancing Rune Open still about 29% uptime, and I wasn't really trying to maximize it. Just really basic. Like, everything's the same. Blood DK still solos, still has no problem self-sustaining, still top healer over the course of a dungeon. Still going to be able to heal myself 5 times more than any healer can, and I still have an enormous health pool. That's it. I mean, nothing else to talk about. It's not going well for Blizzard if they're trying to make those changes that they talked about. Now, let's talk about this because I just want to tell you right now, like, most of my testing and feedback would be on the dungeons. I think Blood DK is going to be capable in the hands of anybody who's played it before, no matter what they do. This is the big problem, is the dungeons. And then the affixes too, okay? So we have a new affix. I did not get to do this. They did not have it up this morning or today whenever I did the keys. It's called Don't Just Eat, Devour. While in combat, Xel'Tath tears open rifts that devour the essence of players. The rifts unleash its energy after 15 seconds, healing all enemies in combat. The rifts collapse if it is dispelled or players receive enough healing, granting all players critical strike chance and maximum health. So I didn't get to see this done. I have no idea about this one. Instead, we had one where balls spawn. This was another one that I hadn't tested yet, and you have to soak them, okay? So I'll quickly give my thoughts on that one. This one I didn't test, but it sounds like it's a better version of Afflicted or something like that. People are comparing it heavily to that, and this is just way easier, it sounds like, because you have a long time to deal with it. 15 seconds is a really long time. But anyway, the one that we did, I don't even know what it's called. I'll tell you, first of all, the voice line, outstanding. This expansion has some problems for sure. It's not going to be as good as Dragonflight in my eyes out of the gate. But I usually don't care about the lore at all. And frankly, like, I can see the criticisms that Dragonflight's lore was very flimsy. It was weak. Like, it just wasn't strong, right? Like, not well made. I mean, it wasn't strong. It didn't get you gripped, right? The characters were very flimsy. The War Within, it's like a 180. Couldn't be more the opposite. From the get-go, I'm excited about these characters. And Xal'Atath, probably the coolest villain I've ever seen in WoW. 20 years of this. I am so hooked. And this is why something like, the seasonal affixes from Shadowlands were so good. Because the characters involved in them were powerful characters. Denathris showing up with Prideful, fucking awesome, right? This is the same reason that I like this affix. So we talked a lot about the affixes. If you're a affix hater out there, raise your hand. You basically made the game harder. Thanks. Everybody's trying to get affixes removed. You removed easy affixes and you added hard affixes. The two that we had tested prior that I already made videos on, they are way, way, way harder than any other affix in the game. The one that I'm looking at right now on the screen, we don't know. I personally can't give my commentary on that, but that one does sound easier than the affixes that have been in the game. And then the one I tested today with the orbs that you have to soak is without question easier than probably all of them in the game, but it is still a huge complicating factor on any boss that forces you to move a long way at certain times. Any situation where you ever have to stack as well, this is a huge, huge problem. We had a problem on Throngus, or however you get the second boss in Grim Batol. We were all trying to bait a frontal, but the orbs come from 360 degrees, maybe like 359 degrees. 359 degrees around this boss, right? So if everybody's stacked in front, you can't do both mechanics at once. You know what I mean? This is the problem. You put the stupid idea in their head that like these are fixes that don't impact bosses whatsoever, like Sanguine. People hate Sanguine. I hate it too, man. I hate it too. But it doesn't affect a boss. It doesn't have any impact on a boss. You know what I mean? Bolstering, busting, quacking. Well, that's a terrible example. That's gone. That's been gone. But you know what I mean? Like these fixes don't affect bosses. Now we got to fixes that affect bosses. And the bosses are hard now, man. Everything's hard because it's tyrannical every single key. There's no breaks. There's no 60% disband rate on tyrannical and 30% disband rate on fortified anymore. Those days are over. So, this is what we got. But this is definitely going to be the easiest of the three I've tested, as long as there's no mechanical complications that force you to not be able to radiate out around the entire boss. If you can spread out and everybody can be in that safely, it's the easiest to fix because only one person has to do it and everybody gets the benefit for it. Now, this is, true to some degree for all of them, but still, it seems way easier because of how much mobility some specs have and the fact that they all funnel into your target. So basically, if you're in combat, these things come to the boss. If you're fighting a boss or a pack of trash, they come to the pack. And if they reach the pack, they deal more damage. The mobs deal more damage. And if they don't, if they reach you, you get a buff. It's a mastery buff. People were complaining that the mastery buff wasn't very powerful. And I agree with that, but none of the affixes are very powerful. They're very much like Thundering in that way, where they're definitely more difficult than they are powerful for you. And I think people aren't going to love that. But this one's definitely the easiest one to deal with. And the really, really, really unique part about this is when the mobs that you're in combat with die after they've spawned, the balls stop. They stop moving. They're just standing there. This may be a bug. It looks ridiculous, especially if they spawn really far away and then the pack dies as it happens. Then you got balls like 800 yards away from your next pack. But when you go and pull and you get back in combat, they find a new target to get pulled towards. Really, really strange looking. And it can be a problem because, for example, if you have pack A here and pack B 600 or 60 yards in front of it, and the orbs spawn between pack A and B, you got to make sure you get them on the way to pack B. Otherwise, pack B is just going to instantly eat them, right? Because of the way they spawn, if the packs are too close together, it's basically already sitting there on top of pack B when you get there. So you got to soak them before you get in combat at all, which may be almost impossible because they're literally overlapping the mobs. I had this happen multiple times, and you could easily wipe to this. Easily. Even one stack of this ball, I think it's 10% damage for one stack, and there's 10 balls each time. A 10% damage buff on any trash, let alone all the trash. I'm not exactly sure how that part works. If it hits one mob, does it hit all of them? I don't really know. But yeah, we had this happen on a boss, the first boss in Stone Vault. The pack in front of it, it's so far away, and then the balls spawn right next to the boss. The boss aggroes, he eats 3. First stomp, it's done. You're done. So I don't know, man. Harder fixes. Dungeons are just ridiculously difficult, though. So again, we're scaled to 613. We're starting to get a bit of an understanding of what our item level is going to be like. I think that's pretty low nowadays. 630, I think, is the number. I don't know. You guys tell me. You guys are the pros with the numbers. But yeah, it's a good ways away from the maximum item level. But they're kind of reducing the ability that you're going to have to get maximum item level from Mythic Plus. It's going to take longer. We made a video on that. So yeah, what are these changes? I'm not trying to throw anyone on the bus. I won't name names, but people in the stream were telling me that top influencers are saying that the dungeons are now severely nerfed because of these things. And you read them and it's like, okay, I could see that. Like this one really shocked me. Like seismic smashes damage reduced. Okay, I got hit for 14 million. What did they reduce? Like what was it before? 20 million? Like, okay, great. They made a change that didn't have any impact on my success rate. Like, you know what I mean? Crystalline Smash can now be blocked. I can't do that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, a lot of these things, they look like they're things, but it's like, it's just, there needs to just be a flat damage nerf. Like, everything in the dungeon needs to do less damage. A flat or a nerf. Or just 15 more item level, right? Like, I don't know. But as of right now, this is the most difficult testing environment I've ever partaken in. Grain of salt here, that's usually because the keys are very flexible. So you can make your own key with affixes that you want to test Not possible this time. You have to play it the way they want you to play it. And that is obviously going to be harder than just doing in a key with no affixes, which is what a lot of people did back in the day. So yeah, way, way, way harder. I don't know that I have time to key. I mean, I'd love for somebody to go through all, I think there's 5 beta streams now of testing Mythic Plus. Tell me how many keys we finished and how many keys we upgraded. People were saying I should have kept a spreadsheet for this because, like, yeah, I should have. I think it's probably, like, I want to say we didn't upgrade a single key over 10. At first, we were doing like 2s because it seemed like the scaling from a 2 to a 10 was the same, but then we found out it wasn't. So 10s are what we really need to be testing because that's like where the end game target is going to be. So like a 5 was way harder than a 10 because you're scaled to like 25 item levels lower than you would be in a 10 for some reason. But yeah, obviously we upgraded some 2s, but yeah, I don't think we upgraded to 10. Necrotic Wake works again. I mean, there's just so many bugs and stuff too. At one point, it's hard to tell. I tried out like a new weak ore for Mr. Turn of Scythe. It's ridiculous. It boasts that you can like do the maze without even entering it, but it requires an add-on, a macro, and a weak ore, and the macro has to be used twice by you. Like you have to press it and you have to be standing in the right spot when you press it. And it requires you to bring up that little mini map thing. I don't know how many people know this, but if you press Shift M, it brings up like a really small mini map that just stays on your screen permanently. This was very useful for Battlegrounds back in the day. I don't know if people still care about that. People still PvP in this game? I don't really think they do. Maybe in Classic or something. But you can use it in WoW of all type, like not just PvP, which nobody does anymore. But yeah, so it's just a lot of work, and it's not that much work. Like Tom was saying, like it's not really that much work, but it's way more work than any other weak ore I've ever used in my life. So will I use it? Probably not. But yeah, I don't know. There's still a lot to take a look at in that stream. But yeah, TLDR, I mean, what changes? That you asked me, do the changes matter? I mean, what changes? What is Rive? I mean, they reduced the damage of this from the Twilight Overseer. I didn't even know they did it. Totally unrecognizable. None of these, you can't tell anything happened. No, no tactile change here. Between the Blood DK changes and the affixed dungeon, it was a complete waste of time, pretty much. I like doing it. I actually have fun doing the beta because it's so ridiculous. Because you have some people doing 2 million DPS and you have some people doing 200k DPS. And you have Jambo fighting with people because of, like, it's kind of fun. It's just more wild than the live version of the game. And I'm comfortable doing it in my own key because they're not keys. They're just, temporary. So yeah, I'm going to tell you guys right now, this is going to be the hardest season ever. So, if you watch this channel and, you want to support me and you don't want to do it financially, here's how you support me. Press the fucking record button, okay? When you're doing even zeros in the first few weeks of the season and you're doing 2s through 5s, I'm begging you, please record them. It's going to be a massacre. Like, I'm telling you, it's going to be a massacre, bro. There's so many people on the beta, which they at best got in like as a chance, at worst paid for, that have no idea what these dungeons are doing, okay? Talked about this on stream. Somebody was like, I'll wait. I might not do any beta testing. I'll just wait until the dungeons are live. We'll have plenty of time, 3 weeks before the season properly starts. Fair. Hey, if you are confident doing that, go for it, man. But there's going to be a lot of people who do that by accident. And those people are going to get destroyed. Like, especially, think about this, right? Season 4, we talked about this, where people are going to come into the season not realizing that 2 is now a 10, basically. Well, that was season 4. Imagine what, like, oh, I haven't played WoW since TBC. I can't wait to come back. A 2, that I like the number 2. That sounds good. Oh, it's going to just flatten them. Like going to like literally, you ever see a smash burger? You ever see the burger presses? That's going to be the affixes. That's going to be Mythic Plus. You're going to be a burger patty and you're going to be like, oh, I'm kind of plump right now. I could definitely get flipped. Oh, what is this? Oh no, it's flattening me completely. I'm now an inch thick. Like, that's what these dungeons are going to do to people, bro. I have no idea why I went with that analogy. No fucking idea. All right, let me know what you guys think. Stay tuned. I'll be making more videos at some point.